Like, so then we got a bunch of self-checkouts, and then eventually they stopped hiring people to bag and run the regular lanes where they would scan your items for you. And you can go to like 1 or 2 human beings that will scan your items for you. But now, like, those 1 or 2 might be full up because usually they'd be like 6 people behind a register. Now there's only 2 because the self-checkout cut out a bunch of people. And now you're rolling up to self-checkout with a full cart of fucking groceries because you don't want to wait in line. And you got to do the whole cart of groceries. Now you're going to have problems with the self-checkout machine. If you're getting like produce, sometimes it's up and weighing it is weird. And if there's a problem, like the machine shuts you out and you have to get a worker over anyway to deal with your shit. And it's a whole goddamn clown fiesta. And you end up taking a shitload of time using a thing that's supposed to be efficient and fast. And it's because the corporations realized they could offload the labor of scanning and bagging your groceries, which previously workers would do for you, onto you, the consumer. They're making you work for them for free, essentially. And you're giving them money.
This guy broke the AI drive-thru voice, so a human employee had to take over.
What would you like?
55 burgers, 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, 55 cokes, 100 tater tots, 100 pizzas, 100 tenders, 100 meatballs, 100 coffees, 55 wings, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pasta, 55 peppers.
Classic reference.
Can I take your order?
Sorry,
Classic reference. Kind of like based, though, in a way. Like, it's annoying for the staff inside. Because, like, obviously not all of that is going through. Like, none of that is going through. But, like, fucking with the technology that in a vacuum could be kind of cool because it could free up people who are doing this work to not have to, but is being employed by, in this case, Wendy's to not have to pay as much in labor costs, so they hire less people, and they'll have robots take your order instead. Like, fucking with that, pretty based, because fuck that shit. Like I say, like, if we were in an ideal situation where, like, people did not need money to live, or even if they did, they had, like, they got enough money from, like, taxing the wealthiest people in our society and yada, 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 that they didn't need to work jobs like this out of necessity to not starve and die. If that was, like, the world we were living in, then yeah, whatever, I don't give a fuck. If AI is taking your order at a drive-thru, it's the fucking drive-thru. Now, I feel like if you go inside, there should be a human being there. Maybe I'm just an old fuddy-duddy. But I feel like if it's just a drive-thru, like, I don't give a shit. If it's a robot taking my order, most of the times, like, nowadays with DoorDash and Uber Eats and shit, nobody's fucking seeing a human anyway. Like, you have people leave the shit at your door. You don't even see the delivery driver, you know? So it's like, we've already cut out the middleman in that way with that vulture industry of gig work, food delivery apps, capitalizing on a problem in the market by creating another problem, exacerbating the issue, but making money off of it, so it's all good. But yeah, because of the fact that Wendy's and any other establishment is employing like robot AI shit, even self-checkout kind of stuff, it's nearly 100% of the time going to be because they don't want to pay as much money in labor costs. Because the more money they can save in labor costs, the more money gets to go to the higher ups along the chain. If they can't cut back on quality for the food in order to save money, if they're not making enough, which in this case, they're almost always making enough. They just want to make more because they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to make sure they continue to make like exponentially, infinitely more money forever. It's always going to be the case that they're going to cut labor costs instead, which is why they lobby against and support politicians that are against raising the minimum wage. They're against unionization and workplace democracy efforts. They're against better like regulations, like OSHA regulations and other regulations to make sure that workplace conditions are safe, sanitary, people are getting enough breaks and whatnot. You know, we see with the Amazon fulfillment centers, people peeing in bottles and whatnot, delivery drivers baking in their cars because they have to turn their shit off to not have the AC running while making deliveries and whatnot. They will cut as much as they can off of labor costs. And the easiest way to do that, other than fighting to keep the minimum wage low and by paying low wages by default, not giving a lot of raises, having a lot of turnover as well is another big thing for like college students that get a job and then leave eventually. Like the shorter length of time a person is at one of these establishments, the less likely they are to organize with their other coworkers to bargain for better wages, the less likely they are to ask for a raise, the less likely they are to be there long enough to like get regular raises as well. Though at that point, you're probably not getting great raises and you've been there for long enough anyway. They've scraped enough ectoplasm off of your soul for the amount of time you've spent there and made them a whole bunch of money that you'll never see. Like outside of all of that, they're gonna replace you. And this is not to suggest that like, oh, well, it's the minimum wage that's causing the drive-through order takers to become automated. No, it's because they want to save money, bro. The minimum wage changing makes your burger go up like 10 cents. It does not hurt the companies at all. They just pretend it does because it's a good way to whip people up into a frenzy and get them to vote for Republicans and conservative Democrats who will push forward policies to deregulate their corporations so they can make you and your family work longer hours for less money and worse working conditions, and you have nothing to say about it. There's nothing you can do about it. That is why they automate. The way you fix that is by putting controls on these corporations through the power of the state and by organizing in your workplace and forming a union so that they cannot unilaterally in authoritarian capacity, because all corporations are dictatorships, force you into bad situations like that. You need to have somebody on your side, and ideally it's, your fellow workers in your union or the state in that case, if the state is on your side, which it so often isn't, unfortunately, in the US. But it should be. That's like ostensibly what the fucking nation state is there for. So once again, if in a vacuum we lived in a world where like people weren't hurting for money, they needed to live, and like fucking working at Wendy's in the drive-thru was one of the few things people could do to keep the lights on and everybody was good, I don't give a shit if the Wendy's order taker in the drive-thru is automated. It's the drive-thru. You're supposed to be in and out anyway. It's pretty antisocial, which I don't like, but I mean, it is what it is. Because at that point, they're not replacing a worker, because the people that otherwise would have been working there in our current system, in that hypothetical ideal system, they'd be, doing underwater basket weaving or whatever the fuck. Getting a stipend from the government to not have to work, but still be able to get all of their necessities and maybe some leisurely shit, And then if they want to do more than that, they can go into industries that will pay them more money, but at least people would have a baseline and would not be forced into working shitty fucking jobs at Wendy's that are going to get replaced by automation because the CEOs want to make more money. Joe Biden wanted to do state-backed worker programs to pretty much make full employment and sign a minimum wage increase. Yeah, it's really cool that Joe Biden's NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, has actually been pretty pro-worker. He's been relatively pro-worker in some ways, anti-worker in other ways. A lot of these, good things that his administration may have done, unfortunately, are completely overshadowed by the fact that they aided and abetted a genocide in Palestine and still are. And at that point, it's like, sure, it's a good thing, but I'm sorry, I can't really notice it over the pile of dead children. You know what I mean? It's fucked. I've always said, if Joe Biden's administration was just entirely his NLRB, his National Labor Relations Board, running the show, it'd be a lot better situation. Because the good thing about a union as well, for work stoppages, is that you can do work stoppages. So if you wanted to put pressure on the state to not aid and abet a genocide in Palestine, you could essentially grind various industries to a halt. That's why truckers' unions are pretty powerful. That's why energy sector jobs are really powerful, because they can literally grind the state to a halt and hurt the state's GDP unless they get what they want. Work stoppages like that, or blockages of roads, etc., are a way to put pressure on the state to force them to do what's good for everybody, Which would be, in this case, stop sending our fucking tax dollars to blow up fucking Palestinian children and put more money into our fucking social safety net. So if you had a union and everybody in the union decided oh yeah, we're going to do a work stoppage in support of Palestine, you'd be able to organize that. You'd be able to do it. And you'd be able to put pressure on people, and ideally the state. And Joe Biden's NLRB has been pretty good at supporting workers when they're striking. Not always, of course. I forget was it the UPS workers? There was some fucked shit going on there that I think it eventually tried to make up for. I don't remember. The train workers strike? Yeah. It's not perfect, obviously, but if the state is on your side, which with Joe Biden's administration, it's the state being on the workers' side under that administration is regrettably one of the better times in America for workers in terms of protections from corporate overreach and exploitation. You'd be able to do shit like that. And it's the same for any other social issue. If we're, marching to try to stop police brutality of all people, but specifically black people, because they are disproportionately targeted, then you could do work stoppages in support of that movement. And you could put pressure on the state to you got to do something about these fucked up cops, and, whatever way that works out. There's a variety of ways that workplace democracy and organizing your workplace, unionization, has help outside of the people in that specific union, in that specific industry, in that specific workplace, is what I mean to say. And frankly, if you're working one of these jobs and your job is getting automated away by the shitty Wendy's AI, if you're in a union, you can fight back against that. You can bargain for the AI replacement shit to not happen. And then some, That's the reason why I left retail and work doing deliveries and be by myself. I can't deal working in that environment. But even with that, I'm not totally off pressure work incentives from incentives work, whatever. I get what you're trying to say, I think. But that's also, so like I touched on it a second ago. But like the fact that like we're not seeing human beings when we go to fucking get food anyway, because people are door dashing, Uber Eatsing, you're never seeing a human being. And if it is the case that you need to talk to your door dasher or your Uber Eats driver, it's like an unfortunate circumstance for a lot of people. It's just it's just a symptom of the degradation of the fabric of society that hopefully we can undo. The big problem with that is that that's also like hurting other workers and the people that are independent contractors for those gig work places like Uber, like Lyft, like DoorDash, etc. Because Domino's still has drivers that are employed at Domino's. They get a W-2, they pay income tax, they get a refund, during tax season. They are employees, and because of that, they have a variety of protections enforced by the state on those corporations to make sure that they are not being turbo exploited. They only get exploited whatever amount the state says is fair, which unfortunately is too much, but trying to fix that. But if you're an independent contractor, you do not have those protections unless you're in a state that has passed legislation to give you them. Because you're an independent contractor, you're not an actual employee. You have to, deal with all your taxes yourself. You do not get any kind of protections from a variety of legislation already on the books to protect workers. And like in a vacuum, the idea of like, oh yeah, you can get food delivered to your door that you previously would have to go out and go to an establishment to get. If you have a busy life, you have children, and like you just don't have the time for it, you want to order some food to your house, and you're tired of eating the standard stuff that's getting delivered, maybe you go for something different. Like in a vacuum, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But the only reason that has come to pass, and COVID, unfortunately, social distancing accelerated this and helped a lot of these gig work corporations, is that they've essentially cut out the employees side of that and are in an arrangement where it's a lot easier to exploit the independent contractors that are working for them while giving them the idea that they're not being exploited because you can, quote, make your own hours, because you can work whenever you want. And, you've got a lot more freedom as an employee, because you're not an employee, I should say, as a worker, because one, you get to make your own hours. Two, you get to listen to music in your own car. You get to drive your own car, all this kind of stuff. You're not being monitored like 24/7. Though I don't know if that's changed for DoorDash or Uber. I know that you can like track your order driver on your own phone with like GPS. So I'm sure like the companies that they're independent contracting for can as well. And like you would want regulation on the people delivering your food too, obviously. Like you wouldn't want to order something and like not have any kind of safeguards against them fucking with your food, which is unlikely, or like going out of their way to take time like while doing your delivery to the point where your food gets cold because they decided to go some fucking bumfuck way to do whatever. Like you would rather have a situation where they're getting compensated well, there are regulations to protect them, and there are regulations to protect the consumer. But with the gig work shit, it's bad for everybody. But it's worst for the workers. And the only reason that really exists in the way that it does is because corporations realize, Uber, Lyft, etc., that there was a market need and want for food delivery. And because of COVID and social distancing, they realize, hey, we can use this pandemic to our advantage and be like, oh yeah, it's safer to do this. Because at the time, technically, scientifically speaking, it was. However, it's just degraded the quality of work for workers, quality of life for workers. It's a vulturous, parasitic way of doing business. It's the same for Uber. Uber started up, they gave you insane rates, like you could get a ride from point A to point B, have the fare be like $15, whereas in a taxi it would be $30. And they operated at a loss for a long time in order to be able to have rates like that, so that more and more people started using Uber because it was cheaper, and now it's literally cheaper to use a taxi, if any exists, in your area anymore. Because they've cornered the market, they've cannibalized it, they've got a lot of taxi services being used less and less, and now they can charge as much as they want. It's the same for Amazon. It's the same for like what Walmart would do. Walmart would move into an area with a bunch of mom and pop stores. They would start selling shit at a loss because they can afford to do so because they're a huge multinational corporation, and they can keep their prices super low. And then eventually, once the other stores around them close down because they can't compete, then Walmart can start jacking up their prices because they've essentially captured the clientele of that area, the consumers of that area. The consumers don't really have many other options to go to now anymore, or previously they did. And yeah, now they can make a lot more money. It's the same thing for Uber. Our local taxis are all either shut down or even less dependable than they used to. Yeah, it's fucked up. Listen, less people have been working on the floor too, so when people want help finding something, they literally cannot because someone has to watch self-checkouts and read tiny words to elderly customers. Yeah, that too. Self-checkout is a fucking scam. The only reason self-checkout is good is because it's good for poor people. And you probably know what I mean by saying that. Because otherwise, like, it's in an abstract, like in the vacuum, it's not a bad play for efficiency. Because you could roll up, get like 7 items at a store, do self-checkout and leave real quick. You don't have to wait in line. Like, that's the idea. But a lot of people will also use self-checkout because they're antisocial or whatever, which is like a problem. It's fine, like, if you have an antisocial, thing going on with you. Like, I'm not condemning you for that. But if you don't have that, and even if you do, like, you should be working to be a bit more social. It's good for you. Like, generally speaking, it's just good for you. If you're in a position where, like, being social isn't an absolute harm, like if you're in a conservative area as a black person or a queer person or whatever. Like, it's generally speaking good for humans to be social because we're social animals, right? Like, so then we got a bunch of self-checkouts, and it's pretty chill. And then eventually they stop hiring people to, bag and run the regular lanes where they would scan your items for you and whatnot. And they've essentially offloaded all the labor onto the consumer now, where you go in there and you can go to like 1 or 2 human beings that will scan your items for you. And they do that labor for you because that's what they're getting paid to do, usually not enough. And then you leave. But now, like, those 1 or 2 might be full up because there's only 2 of them left, where usually they'd be like 6 people behind a register. Now there's only 2 because the self-checkout cut out a bunch of people. And now you're rolling up to self-checkout with a full cart of fucking groceries because you don't want to wait in line. And you got to do the whole cart of groceries. Now you're going to have problems with the self-checkout machine. If you're getting like produce, sometimes it's fucked up and weighing it is weird. And if there's a problem, like, the machine shuts you out and you have to get a worker over anyway to deal with your shit. And it's a whole goddamn clown fiesta. And you end up taking a shitload of time using a thing that's supposed to be efficient and fast. And that's because the corporations realized they could offload the labor of scanning and bagging your groceries, which previously workers would do for you, onto you, the consumer. They're making you work for them for free, essentially. And you're giving them money. Now, obviously, you're getting goods from them. But, you're operating at a loss in that capacity. Because 1, you're having to do a shitload of labor that you wouldn't previously. 2, you have to pay for the shit, and you're paying more than what the shit is worth, obviously, because the corporation needs to make a profit. And even like a small mom and pop grocer has to make a profit, but they're usually not in a position where they can charge exorbitant fees and continue to exist. Like, ideally, there are pressures on them to be more fair in their pricing while still making a profit so they can continue their business growth. But anyway, like, you're losing out on that. And it's the same for fucking Uber and Lyft now. Like, they've offloaded the labor onto the consumer, in a way. In that, like, the people that might before be driving for taxis, which have unions, which are actual employers, which have actual regulations on them, you're now, like, random average Joes are just driving people around to make a buck as, like, a side hustle from their main job in order to keep the lights on. It's just the snake eating itself, just the Ouroboros of corporate fucking exploitation. It's not great. Not to mention, yeah, like Uber, Lyft, etc. have a diametrically opposed business model to the ideal, like, factually more efficient mode of transit, which is public transit, mass transit. Buses, trains, even incentives for protected bike lanes so people can bike around, walkable cities. There's a diametrically opposed incentive, not only from automobile industries to sell more cars, but also for now Uber and Lyft to keep people driving. Because if you need to go somewhere and you can't take a bus, you can't walk, you can't bike, you don't have your own car, you're going to have to take a taxi or now take an Uber or a Lyft, where you should be able to get to a fucking bus at the very least and then get to where you need to go. Or a train, ideally, for many instances. Obviously, a whole bunch together. And then you talk about, like, rural areas, whatever. There's a lot of rural areas in Europe that have train stations that let you get to the core of the city relatively quickly and cheaply. Like, it's not a big deal. Trains were, like, the way motherfuckers got around before the car, before Henry Ford popped up. They were kind of big. Anyway, it is a funny... if you don't know the reference, it's a skit about the pay it forward idea. Like, oh, the person in front of you is going to pay for your order or whatever. So then you order a whole bunch of shit. Tim Robinson, pay it forward. Let's go with this one.
All right, so here's your small fries and your small drink.
Thank you. I'd like to pay for the guy's meal behind me, too. Just pay it forward.
Oh, wow, that's really nice of you.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it'll catch on.
All right, well, you have a great day, sir.
Stop! 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 Please let me go! Please let me go first! I'm doing something!
Hi, can I take your order?
55 burgers, 55 55 fries, 55 tacos, 55 pies, 55 cokes, 100 tater tots, 100 pizzas, 100 tenders, 100 meatballs, 100 coffees, 55 wings, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pasta, 55 peppers, and 155 taters.
Okay, that'll be $680.
Okay. Shit, 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 shit. Hey.
Hey, come on, what the hell's going on up there?
Not paying it. You have to! The guy did it for you! You're the guy! Oh, just do it, you're rich! What?
Hey, what the hell's going on up there?
This guy's trying to start a pay-it-forward chain.
55 burgers.
Ah,
fries.
shit! You rich little fuck!
So dumb, dude.
Come on! Ah! 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 Oh, no! Oh, no! Thought you could just pull that shit on me?
Fine. You win. That's fine. I just wanted to do something good this morning before alcohol class. But You
Alcohol
won.
class.
that's the last time I try to do something good ever again.
Maybe you did have some good intentions. Maybe I did jump to
Oh!
conclusions.
I can just run!
Stupid. Yeah. That's what this was referencing. That's what that old diatribe came from, sorry. I worked in a drive-thru for fucking 7 years in my 10 years in the food service workforce. I would be annoyed if there was AI shit I had to deal with. And then, like, the customer's gonna have problems with the AI voice thing, taking the order, and then I'm gonna have to take over the order anyway. I don't need that shit. Annoying. 7 years? Wow, yeah, I'm old. I started working when I was, my junior year of high school. I always round up to 10 years because it's a nice round number. It's more like 8-ish or something like that. For when I was, how long I've been in the workforce, 8-ish, 9-ish. I don't fucking know. Started working in my junior year of high school. I worked in a fast food place, and I stayed in that, obviously. Eventually, I got a different job. I didn't end up going to college after graduating high school because of life, financial decisions, not wanting to go into debt, not knowing what I would want to get as a degree, and if that degree would be able to help me pay for the debt anyway. You know, I don't come from wealth at all. My dad is an immigrant from Honduras who works a food service job. My mom was born in the States, but dropped out of high school when she got pregnant with my sister. Like, I didn't come from rich beginnings, you know? So, like, we didn't really have the purse to be able to get into college. Well, like, I could have gotten grants for, like, a 2-year degree and then maybe done well enough to get the other 2 years covered by some kind of scholarship shit. I didn't want to deal with that shit because I didn't even know what I wanted to go to school for anyway. So I just stayed in the food service workforce for years and years and years until eventually I was in one place. I ended up going to a different place and I started working in a kitchen. And then I ended up leaving that place because it was shit. And I went back to the other place and I went to place and then blah, 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 blah. It's all been food service. It's all been shit. A lot of it's been in a drive-thru. And then eventually I started streaming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and drawing after work, and then started doing political shit eventually. And then none of that ever panned out and still hasn't panned out to something that I could live on as like a sole income. But I got tremendously lucky and am in a living situation where I can share expenses and don't have to worry. One of few people in my family that can actually like say that. And it's just luck. There's a lot of labor in there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it was luck. And the graciousness of friends, which is, you know, a positive in its own right, but it's not great. We need free post-secondary education. Yeah, you should be able to get an associate's degree at the very least for free. You should be able to get any degree for free, frankly. But, you know, at the very least. Because, like, an associate's degree is, like, essentially a high school diploma. A bachelor's is, like, mildly but barely better than a high school diploma. You know, like, it's not great. Can't do food service anymore, especially waiting tables. It's a really stressful job. No, it sucks. I was just lucky that I liked the people I worked with for the most part at my main job, and my managers like were workers before they became managers, which is usually the best situation because they know what it's like to be a worker underneath them now because they're managers now, or like assistant managers. So like they were usually really cool and not annoying, and like would jump in on the line if it was busy and like actually do work instead of stand around pushing a pencil. That was cool. Anyway. Fully automated luxury gay space communism or something, I guess. And I'm still not without my troubles. It's just that finances are not one of the major ones. Life is suffering, but we should be able to get help by working together as humans. Part of that includes the state. Part of that in the current context includes even corporations who should be forced to pay people fair wages with good working conditions, workplace democracy, you know? We should be able to work together as a social animal and help each other out, because that's literally the whole reason we got to the point in our civilization now, is by working together as humans. There's a lot of exploitation along the way. It's not good, but we can learn from those mistakes. But some people haven't. You know, at a certain point, maybe even the state isn't going to be something that we need. That's far away. It's always good to have at least some people in the higher echelon, Morosi, that actually give a fuck and care about like the plight of the people that are working beneath them in the hierarchy. But it'll almost always be the case that the people that have the actual power to make movements within the corporation are not going to give a fuck about you and will not care about you whether you live or die, so long as they can exploit you for a certain period of time that pays off your initial onboarding into the ecosystem, and then eventually you can be thrown away like a broken tool. Which, frankly, is also symptomatic of the current degradation of our society, in that nobody fixes their fucking shit anymore. They just throw shit away when it breaks. It used to be you had shoes, you had to go to a cobbler to get them fixed. You wouldn't just get new shoes. You'd have to go to the cobbler to get the shoes to begin with. Used to be, when your TV stopped working, you just smack it a little bit, and if that worked, hell yeah, and if it didn't, you'd have to take it somewhere to get it fixed. But now, you just throw anything away. This was a long-winded, not entirely accurate analogy to the social safety net being the way that we fix people when they break, by having single-payer healthcare, making it so you can go to the doctor if you have a problem, or go to a doctor to prevent problems in your health from happening, and also have working conditions that don't create more problems for you in terms of your health, and also helping people get an education by not penalizing them for going to college, which is what they're told to do their entire life. Not having college be pay to win, because it's literally just better for everybody. Anyway, I guess that's a segment. Hey, you, organize your workplace. Look into your local unionizing efforts. It's good for you. You want to be able to fight back against the rich assholes that are trying to make you work for less money, for longer hours, and worse conditions, and also are trying to move the retirement age further and further so that your grandma has to work until she dies too. Not good. Fuck those bitches, man. Unionize your workplace.